truth. It says, "Vim shlosh ela." Speaking about, we just learned it today by Mincha about a number of Vim shlosh ela lo yatzalav. If he doesn't do yiyud or pidyon, then the yotzach chinam and kosav, she goes free after 6 years. So how do you say shlosh in Yiddish? Akiva, how do you say shlosh in Yiddish? Dry. The dry. Oy bedreit nicht, wie yotzach chinam and kosav. You're not going to make any money. I'm a dreit nicht, I'm nicht machen kein Geld.
Very good.
So that's someone told me chat. Okay. Gewaltig. So we got to the bottom of your test, Amud Aleph. I want to finish Daf Chof today. I'm trying to get 2 blood ahead, not 1 blood ahead, because Wednesday and Thursday are turning out to be very challenging time-wise to be able to find places this year. So let's see how it goes. But before we start today, I just want to review what we learned yesterday. So the main points of what we learned yesterday were the 4 shittas that we had about at what point a Nazir who became Tameh can start counting his new Nezirus. We had the shita not of Rebbe. We had the shita of, I forgot who it was. Let's have a look. We had the shita of, let me go back. Adaf.
You want me to open the Gemara? You want me to open it?
No, it's okay. I have a Gemara over here. I have a real paper Gemara over here. Can you imagine? A paper Gemara. We have Reb Ysoy. I'm sorry, he was the first shita. We have Rebbe. Rebbe said, here we have, I'm on Yudches Amud Aleph. The Gemara says as follows. Rebbe Lezer. We had Rebbe Lezer. We had Rebbe Lezer ben. Let me see which Rebbe Lezer it was.
Mati and Shul, are you okay? Did you manage? You need me to come help you?
No, we're managing. I have Chaim here. I have the best IT possible.
I know.
Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda. Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda. Chaim, so Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda says, on day 7, once a person gets his second spritzing of the paraduma and went to the mikveh, right there on day 7, even before he brings the karbanis the next morning, already the 7th day in the afternoon, he starts counting the new Nezirus. Then came the shita of Rebbe, who said, you have to wait till the 8th day in the morning until you're able at least to bring the karbanis, even though you didn't bring the karbanis yet. Then we had the shita of the Rabbanon, who said you had to have brought the korban chatos, even if you didn't bring the korban asham. And then we had the shita of Rabbi Shmuel ben Broika, who said that you have to have brought the chatos and the asham. You just didn't have to bring the oila. And the Gemara was medayik from there that according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Broika, the oila must also be as part of the kapara. It's not just a matana, because if it was just a matana, then it shouldn't have any shaykhs to impacting the starting of the new Nezirus. So those were the 4 shittas that we learned. Then we had a shayla about a woman who was Nadr ben Nazir and she became Tameh. And after she became Tameh, her husband was made for the Neder. So the question is, when is his afara valid? Is it retroactive and it says there was never an Nezirus, or is it only moving forward? The Brisa said that it's Mevia Chatasoif, ve'enim Mevia Oilosoif. She brings a Chatasoif and she doesn't bring Oilosoif. So right off the bat, the Gemara says this only stems according to Rabbi Shmuel. Because if the Oilosoif was merely an Oila of a gift to the Rebbeinu Shloim, well, then surely you should be able to bring the oila. You can bring it oilos nedava. Elamai, it must be that oila has a connection to the kapara, and it's for that reason why this brisa is hooked up chista is only going according to Rabbi Shmuel. But the Gemara asked, if you hold megas gayis, which means the Nazir stops only mikanu la'aba, which means when she violated the Nazir, she really violated. If that's the case, If that's the case, then why doesn't she have to bring all her karbonos? If you hold me ikar akar, which means there was never a Nezirus at all, then the question will be, is why does she bring any carbon at all? So the Gemara said something fascinating, and that is, even though technically Lemafreya, his hafara was oiker the Nezirus Lemafreya, she still has to bring a carbon. You know why? Because for that period of time, till her husband was akar the neder, she had to refrain from drinking wine. That in and of itself is an avera, and therefore she brings the oil. But of course, she only brings it if she became tameh. But she brings it because of the Reb Elazar Kapar, who holds that even a Nazir Tahar did an avera. Which now takes us to the new Gemara of Yotze v'nichnas oidon lo min aminyan. So the Mishnah tells us that as long as somebody remains tameh, if they're makabel Nezirus b'tumah, the minyan doesn't start and they don't bring karbonos. However, Yotza, if they became tahar, they left the basic forest. If they left the basic forest, and then v'nichnas, they came back into the basic forest, oidon lo min aminyan. So the Gemara asks, this doesn't make any sense. Katani oidon lo min aminyan. The Nezirus could start again, and therefore the new Tama will bring them a new chiv carbon. Frank Gemara mishum de Yotza chalal Nezirus. Sure, this person left the basic forest, but this person is still Tameh. So how could you say, Akiva, I'm not sure where Akiva is. I'm trying to share my Gemara, and it stopped it. So I'm going to try sharing it again.
Okay, on the second.
No, I'm going to share it. Is it shared now? Can anybody
Now
see
you're
it?
sharing. Now we got it. Now we got it.
Okay.
We weren't sharing before.
Why is there
So
two
Dr.
of
Gemara-
Yosy?
I'm sorry?
Akiva, why is yours turning into Yosy?
And it's not good. The one that you have mine
Yeah, it's
mirrored, but it's
flashing away.
flashing. Yeah, could you shut that off?
What's
Yeah, thank you.
What did he say? What's flashing?
Your
you
camera.
had my screen showing, and that's not good. Now you have you showing, so it's good.
Okay.
So let's leave it at the way it is. Okay, Dr. Gemara. Yotza v'nichnas oidon lo min aminyan. For the Gemara, Yotza means he left the basic forest, and nichnas he came back into the basic forest, but he never became tahar. So Katani oidon lo min aminyan mishum de Yotza, but just because he left the basic forest, he's still tameh. So how could you say chalal Nezirus? Amar Shmuel, it's going to Yotza v'hiza v'shana v'toval. When it says Yotza, he left the basic forest. He didn't just leave the basic forest. He left the basic forest. And he went through the whole process of being matire, a tummy mace, and he toiveled. So now he's completely tar. So we know the moment he's completely tar, the new count begins immediately. So frek the Gemara, ela nichnas hu da'odon lo min aminyan. What do you mean nichnas means he went back into the basic forest? Why does he have to go back into the basic forest? As long as he's tar, so he's starting to count. What is it relevant that he went back into the basic forest? And loy nichnas eilin oidon lo min aminyan. Are you saying that if he didn't go back to the basic forest, it became tamei, his Nezirus doesn't start? Of course, that doesn't make sense. Zokt Gemara lo mi boy kamar. Lo mi boy Yotza. It's pashut that if he became tahar, for sure you counted the Nezirus. Elafilu nichnas, even if he went back in the same day that he became tahar, he went back in and was matama himself. Oidon lo min aminyan. That's like a new Nezirus that was matama, and therefore he will have to bring karbonos. Amal Rav Kana, Rav Asi Rav. My time alay mifreshis lon kahalan mili. Why didn't you explain this when you taught us the Mishnah? Rather, we had to probe and ask and try to understand why it says v'nichnas. Zakt Gemara, Amar lahain, Amina dilmud le'tzechisu. I didn't want to give you a shear on what you thought was simple to understand. I thought you would be able to understand this on your own. Had I known that you had difficulty with this, of course I would have elaborated. And sometimes a Rebbe tries to prepare a shear the best way possible, but sometimes he doesn't realize that there are things that remain unclear. And that's why Rav said, had I known that these things would remain unclear to you, I would surely have asked. At the end of the day, what you see from here is that you cannot be shy. You always have to ask, because sometimes the Rebbe doesn't realize that there's something that needs extra explanation until he's confronted with it.
Thank you for
Elazar
giving
Omer-
us chizuk.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for giving us chizuk.
Oh, Shkoyach. Zog the Gemara. What I'm trying to say is if I make a mistake, you have to shoot me down. Kind of chnunas. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Loi boy biyon, shenemar, vayomim harishonim yiplu, achiyu yomim rishonim. Rabbi Elazar taught us that in order to start a new Nezirus that will trigger a chiyuv carbon, you had to have counted at least day 2. So Reb Elazar told us that if on day 7, when he started the new Nezirus, because Reb Elazar holds on day 7, you started the new Nezirus, once a Nazir is Tameh and goes through the process of Tahira on day 7, he'll count the new Nezirus. But even though he counts the new Nezirus, if he becomes Tameh on day 7, that wouldn't trigger bringing a carbon for a Nazir Tameh unless he remained Tar the remainder of day 7 and day 8. So now he has 2 days that he counted that he's going to lose when he becomes Tameh. That's when you follow the whole process of a Nazir Tameh, which ultimately is Mechayvim Karbonis when he's Matar himself. So Amar Ula said, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, this big chiddush that Rabbi Eliezer said, that in order for a Nazir that became Tameh, and then he became Tahar, and then he became Tameh again, is the only way for him to have to bring Karbonis because of his second Tumah is Elo B'Tameh Shenozeh. That's only if when he originally was Makabel Nezirus, he was in the basic forest. He was Tameh at the time. Then, when he's Matahar himself and he becomes Tameh again, there had to have been at least 2 days counted. Avul B'Nazir Tahar. But if he was Makabel Nezirus like a regular normal person, and that means he was Tahar at the time, Shenitman, then he became Tameh, Afilu Yoy Mechat. There, even if he became Tameh again on day 7 of his Tahira, he would still go through the whole process. Excuse me. The question is, where does he get it from? Where does he get it from? So Tosfos tells us where he would get this interesting chiddush from. So let me just move my screen around so I can uncover Tosfos. So Zok Tosfos, the Bein Shmoyne Yomim, and it's only B'Tamei Shenoder. Why? The Omar Kra Kitime Nizrei. The words are the pasuk of Kitime Nizrei. He made his Nezirus Tameh. Machma the Betuma Nodar. Kitime Nizrei. The Tosfos is telling us doesn't mean he was a Nazir and then he became Tameh. It means Kitime Nizrei. His Nezirus originally was Tameh. So the pasuk that says Vayomim Harishonim Yiplu is only referring to a Nazir that when he became a Nazir he was Tameh. That's when you need 2 days. But if he was a regular Nazir that became Tameh, and he was become Tar on day 7, if he became Tameh again after he became Tar on day 7, he would, even though there's only 1 day counted, day 7, he would still have all of the rules of the Karbonis of a Nazir that's Tameh. Okay, so let's turn over to Daf. If I'm able to do that, and hopefully I'll be able to. See. Oh, it worked. Baruch Hashem. So Zok Tehillah Gemara. Ubesil Sovri. Oh, I am not doing good over here. I went to Chafam and Aleph and I'm supposed to go to Yutes Amid Beis. I apologize. So let me fix that. Gewaltig. Zok Tehillah Gemara. Amar Rava, my time with Rabbi Elazar. What is for Rabbi Elazar? Amar Kraki Timin Israel, Shubid the Betuma Nazar. Esrei by effective this does not make any sense at all. Hareni Nazar Meyayoy. What if someone said, I'm a Nazar 100 days? Now clearly this Bryce is speaking, Vinitma, and then he became Tameh. So clearly this Bryce is speaking where when he was Makabel Nazirus, he was Tahar. And only afterwards did he become Tameh. When did he become Tameh? B'tchilas meya, at the beginning of his count. Yochel Yosy, you would have thought that it's Yosy if he became Tameh on day 1. What When do we say that you have to go through the whole process of a Nazir Tomei and bring karbanos? That's only if there was Yomim Rishonim. If you already counted at least 2 days. Achulo Yomim Rishonim. Bezet. This person who became Tomei on the very first day of his Nezirus, Ein Lo Rishonim. He doesn't have 2 days. So this is what the Gemara's Rai is going to be. This is Rabbi Elazar Shita. And clearly, it says over here that this applies even if he was Makabel Nezirus originally when he was Tahar, and he only became Tamei later. So that's what the Gemara is going to bring its Raya from, but we're going to still finish the Brisa. Nitma b'soif mea. What if he became Tamei on day 100? Yochel ye soiser. You might say that that's also soiser, and he has to count over all 100 days. Talmud Leimer v'hayamim harishonim yiplu. If it says the earlier days fall, it must be that there has to be at least 2 days remaining. But someone who only became Tamei on the last day of his Nezirus, and therefore, his Nezirus. And if you remember, we learned that someone who comes Tamei on the last day of his Nezirus, he only has to keep another 30 days. What happens if it was Nitma b'yoyim meya chasar? What if he became Tamei on day 99? Yochel lo yehi soiser. You might think it's not soiser. Talmud Leimer v'yomim harishonim yiplu mechlal dik achronim. This person who became Tamei on day 99, he fits the bill perfectly. He has many more than 2 days since he started. He's on day 99. But v'achronim, he also has 2 days of the end of the Nezirus, day 99 and day 100. So therefore, he's a classic case who follows the process of a Nazir Tamei. Frek the Gemara, you can't say that this case is speaking where when he was Mekabel Nazirus, he was already Tamei. Midikatani Hareni Nazir Meya Vinitma Betchilas Meya. It says clearly, first he said Hareni Nazir, and only after that did he become Tamei. And Vikatani Achiulo Yomim Rishonim. So you have a clear raya that Reb Elazar said as halacha, even in a case where he was a Nazir that was Tahar, and only later did he become Tamei. So Tiyufta, this halacha, this Rava, who said this halacha, that Reb Elazar's halacha only applies to a Nazir that was Mekabel Nazirus B'Tumah, is clearly not true, because we have a brisa that makes it very clear that this rule applies as well if he was Mekabel Nazirus B'Tahir. So now Rav Papa has a shayla. So the way we understood Rabbi Eliezer, it seemed to be very, very straightforward. That on day 1 of his Nezirus, if he became Tamei, he would not bring a carbon of Tumah after he's Matar himself, but on day 2 he would. Rav Papa is not so sure, according to Rabbi Eliezer, even on day 2, and maybe you still wouldn't bring a carbon. Because maybe when Rabbi Eliezer said
That's Yosy's, no?
Yes, he has to plug in his computer.
How do you know?
Because that's what happened Friday too. Call him on his phone.
No, he'll log back in. He's going to log back in.
He doesn't know.
Charges.
Last time he spoke, call him on his phone. I don't have the telephone. Call him or leave him a message. Like that. Where's SU? Huh?
Here, he's back. He's back.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
the computers are unplugged?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Is your computer plugged in?
My computer is plugged in. The Kedisha Reb Ysoy lost this internet as I get, you know? Okay, so let's see what let's Rapapa said, I'm going to Rapapa Labai. Halan Yomim de Kamrinon. These 2 days that Reb Eliezer said you need before a Nazir Tamei would go through the whole process of the Nazir's Tamei with his carbon and all. Frank the Gemara, How does it work? Do you say the nafak chad umaschilim train, which means day 2? On day 2, which is how we understood it, the pashtas, you start, if he became tummy on day 2, automatically he goes through the higher process and has to bring the karbanis. Oidilma the nafkin train umaschilim tlasim. Or maybe it's actually you need the 3rd day to come. Why would you need 3 days if Rebbe Ysoy says veyamim? And the answer is of Tosfos, is that maybe you need a full day. So if you're on day 2, let's think about it. Let's say day 1 was Tuesday, and he was makabel Nezirus on Tuesday afternoon. So you don't have a full day of Tuesday, and even Wednesday, which is day 2, if you're middle of the day, you don't have a full day of there either. So you have 2 half days. Maybe that doesn't qualify for a yom harishonim yiplu. Maybe you need 1 full day. So therefore you need day 3. So for instance, if he was makabel Nezirus on Tuesday is a half a day, it doesn't count. Wednesday would be a full day, and then Thursday he became Tameh. This way he had at least 1 full day. And that's the shaila that Rav Papa had to Abaye. When Rabbi Eliezer said that it has to be Yomim, did there have to be at least 1 full day or not? That was the shaila that he had. And like have a biyote. Abaye wasn't sure what shot in Rabbi Eliezer is. So also shaila the Rava. So Rav Papa went to ask Rava, what is his opinion of how to understand Rabbi Eliezer Shita? Amar Lei, he told him, Yiplu ksiv. It says Yiplu. Yiplu, Zoktoisus tells us that even if it's just a half a day, it's good enough to say that the 2nd day would be enough to be mechayim with the carbon. Ve'itrich lemichtav yomim. It had to say vayomim harishonim Yiplu to tell you that you need 2 days. Ve'itrich lemichtav Yiplu to tell you that only half a day, even if it's a half a day, it's enough. Because of Rachmana Yomim, if the pasuk only said Vayomim Yiplu or Vayomim Rishonim, the likes of Yiplu, and didn't say Yiplu, which is Mamayit, how much you need, Havamina ad the Nafkin train the island Talos. I would have thought that you need actually the 3rd day, so you get 1 full day. Because of Rachmana Yiplu, that's why it says Yiplu to say, no, you don't need that much. It's enough that it's on day 2, even though they're only part days, that will trigger this process of a Nazir Tameh. Because of Yiplu, V'loiksiv Yomim, if it only said Yiplu, Havamina Afilu Chat, even 1 day is enough. Because of Rachmana Yomim. So you have Yomim and you have Yiplu to tell you that you need 2 days, but you don't need any full days. It's enough that we're in the 2nd day, even though the 1st day was only a half a day, because he was only Mekabel and Nezirus in the afternoon, and he became Tameh in the middle of the 2nd day. That's good enough to trigger the process of a Nazir Tameh.
Why, if it would say Yiplu Alusha Rabbim, would I think even 1 day is gonna is
because Yiplu is mashma a minimal amount. It's mashma a minimal amount.
They will fall.
So Yiplu says Rashi is the mashma lahavin train benefila. We're going to Nafkin train by island class.
Okay.
So
That means more.
Yiplu tells you that just a little bit will be enough. Yiplu is a mashmois of it should be it even a minimal amount of days, like 2 half a days, would be enough to trigger.
I don't know. Maybe there's other place.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I say a Mailush Goidish Avov, Malip Vov, whatever how you call it, is a Lushan Rab. You will fall. That's how we touch it.
Yiplu could mean 2 days, but it doesn't mean 2 full days.
Right.
I think that's what
here it says if it would only say Yiplu, I would say even 1 is enough. Yiplu is a Lushan Rab, 1 is not Lushan Rab.
I hear. Yeah, and I hear. But that's what Tosha says. I mean, that's what the Gemara says. Yiplu is a lashon of minimal. Okay, so let's see the Gemara about it. Misha Nazir Nezirus Harbe. So the head of the mission. Misha Nazir Nezirus Harbe. Someone was makabel.
The Mefarish on the last line says, Yiplu an Nazirim the Alma Kuhn.
Very good. Shkoyach bring up. Okay, excellent. So it's going on in the Nazir in general, but only 1 day would be enough. I hear Shkoyach. Thank you. Okay, so let's see the Gemara over here. Misha Nazir Nazir's heart. Somebody was noiser a lot of Nazirs. The Hishlemes Nezirus. and he finishes Nezirus. So let's say he had Nezirus for a long, long time, and he was mashlim as Nezirus. And then he came to Eretz Yisrael. The Shamay Oimrim Nazir Shloshim Yom. The Nezirus that he kept there is not good midrabanan, and they're mechayiv him to do over another Nezirus of 30 days. So he might have just finished Nezirus of 100 days of Chutz La'aretz, but when he comes to Yisrael, he still has to fulfill 30 days. Here you have a Basil who's machmer Nazir B'tchila. Let's say he was makabel Nezirus for 100 days, and he was mashlim the Nezirus from Chutz La'aretz, and then he came to Eretz Yisrael, he has to keep a full new Nezirus of 100 days. Her son went to Milchama, and she wanted a Yeshua that he should be a protection, that he shouldn't get hurt. She said as follows. She made a neder. If my son comes back in good health from the Milchama, she was makabel upon herself Nezirus of 7 years. And it worked. What happened? Also La'aretz. After the end of the 7 years, she decided to come to Eretz Yisrael. Told her, I'm sorry, your Nezirus that you kept in Chutz La'aretz is wonderful, but you have to keep another set of 7 years of Nezirus. And then, and then all the way to the end of the second set of 7 years, she became Tomei, and now she had to do it all over again. The Nimtas Nezira Esrim Va'achasham. She ended up being a Nezira for 21 years. Amar Reb Yehuda. Reb Yehuda said, that's not what happened. She was only Nezira for 14 years. And the Gemara is going to explain in what way Reb Yehuda argues on the Tanakh. The Reisha says, Beishamay Ayrim, Nezir Shloishim Yoim. Uvisil Ayrim Nazir B'tchila. Why are they arguing? In what is the machlokes told? Lema b'hakamiv. Let's take this in the machlokes. The Rabbanan were geyser on Eretz Ha'amim that it's tamei. The question is, how strong was the gzeira? How chamer did the Rabbanan treat Eretz Ha'amim chutz la'aretz? The Beishamay Savri Eretz Ha'amim mishum gusha gazru alei. They said that the reason why you come tamei if you go in Eretz Ha'amim is because we consider the ground as if there's a mace buried there. So we consider it like a basic forest. That's chomer, but it can get even worse. So let's turn over the daf onto daf Chaf Amar Aleph. Uvesil Savri, Vesil holds, Mishum Avira Gazrele. They were much more machmer than just treating the earth like it's a basic forest. They actually considered the air of a basic forest. What the nafkamina? Very, very simple. If we carry somebody in a box into a basic forest and he doesn't step on the ground, he does not become tamei. But the Beisil was machmer that in Chutz La'aretz, even if you're in a box, you will also become tamei. So it's more chomer than even a basic forest. So you see, Beisil considers Chutz La'aretz a lot more chomer than Eretz Yisrael. Zok the Gemara. Therefore, let's say Beishamai, who's not so machmer on Chutz La'aretz, he held that it's enough if you kept your Nezirus on Chutz La'aretz. All you have to do is keep a 30-day Nezirus in Eretz Yisrael. It'll be good enough. Beisil says, "Oh, Chutz La'aretz is very, very chomer. We don't consider your Nezirus at all, and therefore you have to keep the full. You have to keep the full Nezirus all over." Zok Gemara loy. Maybe that's not the machlokes. The chulu alma mishum gusha gazro. Let's say everybody holds it's only like a basic forest, and therefore Beis Shammai makes sense. It should only be 30 days. With Beis Shammai savri v'stav Nezirus kanis, the knas that the Rabbanan made on somebody from Chutz La'aretz when he came to Yisrael is only 30 days. They didn't feel the need to be so machmer. V'sil savri ki kanisna b'tchilas Nezirus. Even though we only consider Eretz Yisrael mishum gusha gazru alei, it's only like a regular basic forest. Nevertheless, they made a very serious kanas on somebody in Chutz La'aretz that he has to keep the full Nezirus again. Zok Gemara, Ma'isa behilni hamal. She had a crazy story where the Tanakh said she had 21 years of Nezirus, and Rabbi Yehuda said no, it was only 14 years. So the question is, in what precisely does Rabbi Yehuda argue on the Tanakama, which led him to say that it's only 14 years? Was it a shaila in halacha, or was it a shaila mitzias? Is it a shaila about what happened, or is it a shaila about the halacha? Ibailu, v'shenitmis v'alibed beisham. What happened? She became tameh, which means she kept 7 years before she came into Eretz Yisrael. She came to Eretz Yisrael, and according to Beis Shammai, she had to keep another 30 days, and then she became tameh, which triggered another 7 years. Is that where the 14 came from? Because she's paskening, because Rabbi Yehuda was paskening like Beis Shammai, or Dilma. So Rabbi Yehuda heard that they paskening like Beis Shammai, or Dilma b'shaloi nitmas, or maybe he's speaking she never became tameh, and in fact, Rabbi Yehuda is saying testimony that she did not become tameh. She just had to keep another 7 years, because of Beis Hillel's shita that you have to redo the entire Nezirus. Zok the Gemara, we'll see. Let's see the Lashon Mishnah. Tashma. Also la'aretz v'hayrua Beis Hillel shetehei Nezira oid sheva shana macheres. That's what the Mishnah says. If you're going to say that the Mishnah is speaking where she actually became tamei, leave it to Beis Shammai, and it follows Beis Shammai shita that you only need the 30 days, so it's really 14 years plus the 30 days. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? She was only in Nazir for 14 years. But if she became tamei with Beis Shammai shita, it's really 14 years, but the extra 30 days as well. From the fact that Rabbi Yehuda said it was only 14 years, it must be that Rabbi Yehuda was saying it's going like Beis Hillel, and he's arguing on the story. And he's saying that she didn't become tamei. She kept only 14 years because all she had to do was repeat her Nezirus once she got to Eretz Yisrael. We have another brayso that supports this. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Yishor Rabbi Eliezer, the Ka'amar Kra, Zois Teiras HaNazir. If you remember, this is what the Rabbi Eliezer who told us that someone who becomes tamei on the last day of their Nezirus, they only have to keep 30 days. So let's see the Bach. Zois Teiras HaNazir. Zois Teiras HaNazir Dr. Bach. Biyoim Molois, and we learned this a couple of blatt ago. This is the Torah of somebody who became tamei on the last day of his Nezirus. What do you do for him? Pain loy Teiras Nazir. You give him only 30 days. So since Rabbi Yehuda passes like Rabbi Eliezer, that if someone became tamei on the last day, he only gets 30 days, and he doesn't have to repeat the whole Nezirus. That stems very good that he's going according to Beis Hillel, because according to Beis Hillel, even if he became tamei on the last day, he would only have to have another 30 days. Okay, so let's see the Heilige Gemara weiter. The Heilige Mishnah weiter. Mi shahayu shtei kitei edim me'idus Yosy. There was a question as to how many Nezirusin he did. Tosfos was asked, why didn't you just ask him? So Tosfos says different pshatim. Why you don't ask him? Either he doesn't remember, or he doesn't want to say. So he had two kitei edim saying edus on how many Nezirus he accepted. Elam Eden shenazir shtayim. This set of edim says that he accepted upon himself 2 days, 2 periods of Nezirus, 60 days. Ve'elam Eden shenazir chamesh. And the second set said that he accepted upon himself 5 Nezirus. V'shami oimrim nechla kaha edus ve'ka Nezirus. This edus is stiridik, and therefore there's no Nezirus at all. We don't have any edim for any Nezirus, so they're both contradicted. With Silvaimrim, they both agree that there's at least 2 Nezirusin. Yesh b'chal chamesh shtayim, shei nazir shtayim. So therefore, since both sets of edim, even though they disagree, but everybody agrees that there was at least 2 Nezirusin, therefore this nazir will be mechuyev in 2 Nezirusin. This Mishnah will not be consistent with the following Tan. The Tanya Rabbi Shmuel ben Nosh Rabbi Yechma Berek Omer, Le'nechliku be'shamei u'v'sil al shtei kitei edim. They're not arguing when there's 2 separate sets of edim, which our Mishnah seems to indicate is where they are arguing. But the bride says they're not arguing. If there's 2 separate sets of edim, achas emer shtayim, the achas emer shchamesh, everybody agrees sheyesh bechlal chomesh shtayim. You have two sets of Edom that both agree at least that there's two sets of Nezirus. So where is their machlekes? Al menechlechu al kat achas. When you have one set of Edom and each of the two Edom are saying something different. Echad omer shtayim, ve'echad omer chomesh. Shebeshami oimim nechlech v'edusim. Beshami said this is not a congruent set of Edom, so there's no Edom here at all. V'seloimim yesh bechlal chomesh shtayim. They both agree that there's two Nezirus, and therefore at least we can get from these Edom that there's two Nezirus. Amar Rav said, "Hakol moedim b'moedim." Everybody agrees if they're counting, and we'll see in just a moment what that means. Amar Rav Chamal Rav Chisda. Maika Amar. What exactly does Rav mean to say when it says b'moedim? They both agree. Ilema echad omer chamesh v'lo shtayim. The one that came along and said, "I'm 100% sure that it was 5, and it's for sure not 2." The echad omer shtayim v'lo chamesh. And the other one said, "I'm sure it's only 2 and not 5." For sure, over there, they both agree that this is not a good Nezirus. Ella, what would the case be where everyone's moided that it would work? Ella echad omer achas ushtayim. One said 1 and 2. The echad omer, and another one said shalosh arba chamesh. And one said 3, 4, and 5. So let's see what the Gemara says on Amud Beis. So one person said I saw 1 and 2, and the other one said I saw 3, 4, and 5, but he didn't see 1 and 2. So let's see what the Gemara says. Can I turn over the Amud? So let's see Tosfos. La'echad omer achas ushtayim. The echad omer shalosh v'arba v'chamesh. The Edom akhishin befereshes. They're not each one commenting directly on what the other one said. The person who saw 3, 4, and 5 did not say there's no 2, and the person who said 2 did not say there's no 3, 4, and 5. Rather, each one says what they saw. I saw 1 and 2, and the other guy said I saw 3, 4, and 5. The Chamash Milon Rav is teaching us the kivin dechol chad v'chad nochas l'minyona. Since each one actually counted 1 and 2, and the other one said 3, 4, and 5, he didn't say 2 at one shot. He said, I saw 1 and then I saw the other. And the second item said, and he didn't say achas ushtayim. We say it's ke'ilu omar loy achas ushtayim nadar ela shel shalosh v'arba v'hei. We say hakol moedim that it's not a good edus because it's even though he didn't speak out v'lo shtayim, it's as if he said it. V'zeh shomar achas shtayim, it's ki'ilu omer v'lo neder shalosh v'arba v'chomesh. Even though they didn't say it explicitly, we look at it like they did say it, and therefore it's hakol moedim that it's not a good edus. Frek the Gemara, why is that a problem? Halamali, hashi yesh loimer amirta amar Rav kiltaloi amar. If someone said 3, 4, and 5, why would you understand it as saying that there wasn't a 1 and 2? If it's 3, 4, and 5, for sure there was a 1 and 2 before. So why would you say that this is a hakasha? Amri b'marava in hakasha b'moiner, and then the Marava said, in fact, there is no hakasha. So in fact, in Marava they argue on Rav, and they say that if one of them said 1 and 2, another one said 3, 4, and 5, it in fact would not be a kasha, and it would be a good edus. What the Mefarish speaks out is something very interesting here. The Mefarish speaks out that it says Chamirta Omar Rav Kilsaloi Omar. Where did Rav say this? So the Mefarish brings down that Rav said this in the Gemara Sanhedrin in the Yerushalmi. So the Maritz Chias built from here a very strong case that the people who wrote Talmud Bavli actually had access to Talmud Yerushalmi. And that's why you see here that they're quoting something that Rav said in the Talmud Yerushalmi. So the Maritz Chias brings a right from there that the Amiroim in Bavel actually had a Talmud Yerushalmi when they wrote the Talmud Bavli. So Baruch Hashem,
Much
sorry?
much earlier. The Yerushalmi was finished much earlier than the Bavli.
Right, but the Bavli had it. They had access to it.
Yosy is one of the big Amarim in Bavli also.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a few, maybe 3 daughters earlier.
Yeah. Okay, so Baruch Hashem, we finished the third parak. So let's see the next parak. Misha Amar Hareini Nazir. Some said Hareini Nazir. The Shama Chaveiroi Vamar Va'ani Va'ani. So we're going to soon see if this means one person responding, if it's two people responding to the original Nazir, and say Reuben said Hareini Nazir, Shimon said Vani, going back on Reuben, and Levi said Vani, going back on Reuben. That could be one shot. The other shot might be is Reuben said Hareini Nazir, Shimon said Vani, I want to be like Reuben, and then Levi said Vani, I want to be like Shimon. And the Gemara is going to have a long discussion as to what this means. The law is Kulam Nazir. They all become Nazir. Therefore, Hutar Harishai, since the Nezirus are all totally the first fellow, if the first fellow is Mater's Nether, he goes to a Chacham and he's Shoyal, and the Nether becomes Batal Mekaroi, Hutar Kulan. Anybody who said Vani on the Nezirus of the first person, their Nezirus is no longer a Nezirus because the first Nezirus evaporated. Hutar Achrein, but if the last guy became Mutter, for Achrein Mutter v'chul Nasur. Now from this line, it seems to be mashma that everyone was on the guy before him's shoulder. So the first Vani was referring to Ruvain, and the second Vani is referring to Shimon. So therefore it said that if the last guy, if Levi was Hutar, he's Mutter, but Shimon and Ruvain, of course, their Nezirus remains. But if Ruvain's Nezirus evaporated, and anybody who piggybacked on Reuben's Nezirus would also be batal. Amar Hareini Nazir. What if he said Hareini Nazir? The Shama Chaveira, and his friend heard him say Hareini Nazir. V'amar, and he said, V'zel Lashon. Fi kepiv, my mouth should be like his mouth. This, I guess, Lagabi drinking wine, but the Gemara is going to elaborate and explain. V'sari kesaroi, and my hair should be like his hair. So the lachas are raised Nazir. The Gemara is going to get into detail as to how that Kabbalah's Nazirus works. One of them said Hareini Nazir. V'shama Ishtoi, and his wife heard him say Hareini Nazir. V'amar Vani, and she says, you know what? I want to be a Nazir too. So the lacha is made for Shalah. He can be made for her Nazirus, and that, of course, will not impact his Nazirus. The Shalai Kayim, of course, his Nazirus remains intact. What if she said Hareini Nazir? She was Makabal Nazirus. V'shama Ba'ila V'amar Vani. Her husband came along and said, and me as well. So the halacha is Eino Yochel Hafer. He could no longer be mefer. And there's going to be a shaila as to why. Remember, we had a shaila, we just learned it a moment ago, that when the Baal is made for his wife's Nazirus or Neder, is it Megas Guy? Is it only Mikanu Lahaba? Or is it Lemafreya? So we're going to soon see that if it's Lemafreya, on the side that it's Lemafreya, the reason why he cannot be made for her Neder is because if he's made for her nether, it's automatically going to evaporate his own Nezirus. And we know that it says in the Torah, Lo Yachal Devaroi, a person cannot be miyachal his own Nedarim, Aval Acher Mecham Loi. Either a husband or a Chacham could be made for a nether, or be not for a nether. If he's going to be made for his wife's nether, Meikaroi, which will then have the impact of being mevatel his own nether, he doesn't have the power to do that. That's if you hold Miyakar. If you hold Megas Gaius, then you, which means I'm only stopping her Nazirus Mikanu Laba. What's the problem? She was Makabal Nazirus. He says Vani. He was Makabal Nazirus, and then after he was Makabal Nazirus, only then is he made for her in the future. So why can't he be made for her? So the Gemara says because if he said Vani, it's as if he was the Mekayim her nether. By him saying Vani, when she makes a nether, I want the same thing. That's as if he was actually Mekayim it, and therefore he can no longer be made for it. Hareini Nazir, V'at, he said, I'm going to be a Nazir, V'at, and you, my wife, as well. Now, you could not be Mekabal Nazirus for your wife.
Yosy.
Yes.
Could he be shoyal on that?
On his Afara?
Yeah. Or
yes,
yeah.
He can. The Gemara is going to specifically say that he can. He could be shoyal on his Afara. I'm sorry, he could be shoyal on his kiyum, right? If he said Vani, which means he's Mekayim or nether,
that's what I mean.
yeah, he could be shoyal on her kiyum. He can. And the Gemara is going to say Any yachal hafer unless he's shoyal on the kiyum. So thank you for bringing that up. Hareni nazir viat. What if he said, I want to be a nazir and you as well? Now he could not make his wife into a nazir. But v'amr amein, she said amein, which means now she's makabel upon herself his Nezirus. The halacha is made for Shalom. He can be made for hers, which is only coming after his. V'shaloi kaim, his Nezirus will remain intact. What if she said, I already Nezirah v'ata? She said, I'm a couple Nezirus, and I want you to have as well. V'amar amen, he said amen. There any yachal hafer, again, based on the two svaros we said. If you hold mi'akar akar, he can't be made for because it's going to have the impact of him being made for his own nether, which he cannot do. And if you hold make his guys, it's because if he said amen, it's a riot that he was Mekayim it, and therefore, like Dovi said, he would have to be Shoyal and Zakama first. Yosy v'shlokish kamei Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. The Yosy v'kamar. V'hu shetzfisei kulon v'soich chedeidim. So we're now assuming that all of the people who said Vani are referring back to the original Noider Reuven. All of the people who said Vani had to have done it v'toich chedeidim within a second or two of Reuven being Mekabel his Nezirus. The Kama Toich Kedei Dibur. How long is Toich Kedei Dibur? It's Kedei Sheila Shalom. It's the amount of time it takes to ask Shalom. The Kama Kedei Sheila Shalom. It's Kedei Sheila Shalom Talmud Larav, which is Shalom Alecha Reb Ysoy. So what is it? Shalom Alecha Reb Ysoy. That's four words, which would allow for four vanis. Vani, 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 vani. Because after four words, you've timed out. Omer lay, so Rish Yehuda Nesiya told Rish Lakish back, Tov, sit down.
It's only timed out if he's piggybacking on the first guy, no?
I'm sorry?
Only timed out if he's piggybacking on the first guy.
That's right.
Okay.
This is based on them all piggybacking on the first guy. So he said, sit down, You're not giving any room for Talmidah. And Tosfos says, what does that mean? Kloimer Talmud Sheshama. What if a Talmud heard that somebody was Makabel Nezirus? And he wanted to also accept Nezirus. But the problem was he got interrupted. While he was about to say Vani, his Rebbe walked by. And now he's Mechuyev to greet his Rebbe. So there's only three words. Now he won't be able to be matas for Nazir and say Vani anymore because he already had a hefsek of three words. He already waited long enough where he can no longer say Vani according to Yerish Lakish. That's not logical. So therefore, even the fourth person is nitpas. So you have Vani, 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 Vani. You have four people. In other words, even though the Kedei Dibur passed, but as long as immediately after the Kedei Dibur passed, you said Vani was right after the three words, that's also enough to connect it to the first Reuven who was Makabel Nezirus. Aval Chamishi, but a fifth guy, Vadai Ein Nitvis Sheshak Sas Acher Kedei Dibur. So we have a Machlokes, which Lakish says after the third Vani, the fourth Vani won't work. Reb Yehuda Nesiya says the fourth Vani, in fact, will work. So let's just see how the Gemara concludes this. Zok the Gemara, Tanya Mihachi, Vishama Reni Nazir, Vishama Chaveroi, Vishak Kedei Dibur. His friend heard and he waited the amount of time it takes to say Salam Alech Haremi, V'Amar Vani, and only afterwards they say Vani, Hu Aser V'Chaveri Mutter. He will be Aser and his Chaver will be Mutter. So you see, it did not work. So for Keret, this is a riot not to Yehuda Nesiya, this is a riot to Rish Lakish, as Tosfos says. Because once he said Shalom Alech Haremi, the fourth Vani did not work. V'Chama Kedei Dibur, Kedei Sheila Shalom Talmud Larav. Okay, let's stop here because now the Gemara goes through a whole bunch of rayas back and forth to decide whether or not the fourth Vani will work or not. So we have Rish Lakish who holds the fourth Vani will not work, and we have Reb Yehuda Nesiya who holds the fourth Vani will work. I just wanted to mention something very interesting. We were talking earlier about this gzera, that if someone was a Nazir and he came into Eretz Yisrael, he has to keep Nezirus again, because there's a gzera on Eretz Amamin, either it's like a forest and its ground is Tomei, or even more chomer than that its air is considered Tomei. Believe it or not, there's a Rambam that says that nowadays a kohen, it's not also for a kohen to become Tomei in Chutz La'aretz. Since everything's Tomei anyway, it's not also for a kohen to become Tomei. Avada, we don't pass like that. We pass and it's 100% usher for a kohen to go into a basic forest. But there's actually a shita who says that a kohen might be able to become tamei. I would not try that at home. It was just a very interesting shtickle in the Rambam.
Wi-Fi. Was gewollt in der Welt, sie gewähnen einmal Aid, was hat sich gekriegt mit der Grek, also ich gewähnen in der alte Dus, als sie haben gesagt, das ist unsere Seite, das haben schon gehabt Telefon, von was haben gegruppen dort, and they found a wire on the ground. So you see, ja, die Gampet, we had cordless, wie da weiß man, man hat gegruppen und Kunst getroffen.
Very good. Very good. So shkoyach everybody.
Well,
Yosy, tomorrow we'll learn at 8 o'clock, and then we'll learn at 7 o'clock, and then we'll learn at 9 again. We're going to learn Monday and hopefully part of Tuesday, because I'm not sure if I'll be able to say on Wednesday. So between Monday and Tuesday, I want to finish Wednesday and Thursday's Gemara, if I'm able to. And if we fall behind a little bit, I'll catch up when I get back, because I'm still not sure 100% that I'll be able to get access on Wednesday and on Thursday. I'm sorry?
You were by the Melav Malka by David HaMelech?
I had the Melav Malka over here in my apartment with David HaMelech.
No, but I told you there, there's some kinds of music and dance listening.
No, I didn't. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't bring anywhere.
Well, Yosy, have a good slip.
Thank you.
Your Friday night.
What time is Mesikin by you now?
6:15.
Yosy, you want Friday night to the coastal?
He wants you to stay up, that's all.
Friday night I davened at the coastal. Yes.
Like inside, all the way to the last minion inside.
Yeah, but it's easy for me. I'm in the old city.
Right.
Yeah, so I went to the coastal Friday night, and this morning I davened in the Churvashul.
And it didn't cost you anything to get there to the coastal, because if you're snoring, then you're not Jewish.
It's okay. There's enough people here who need money.
Oh, yeah,
I told them that Mintzberg told me that they did a study per capita. The Israelis have greater earnings than Canadians. Now, of course, the income disparity is much greater between the people who have no money at all. But per capita, Israelis earn more than Canadians. So Mintzberg told me, before you know it, there's going to be Canadian Mishalachim running around the coastal, schnorring from the Israelis.
That'll never happen.
I'm not going to hold my breath for that.
Yeah,
it's probably not going to happen tomorrow.
Nope. Okay, so Yosy, have a good morning.
Okay, the 7 o'clock shear will be in the Pirkei room.
Yes, I'm not going to be there personally, but the screen will be on.
So the Pirkei room, he means, and which
where you're sitting now?
Where are you sitting right now?
Where? Oh.
The basement.
Moti, thank you very much for taking care of my son.
The basement.
Okay.
Did the Roth come to shul this week?
Yeah. He actually walked. He walked for his aliyah from his seat to the bima. He was in New York this week too for a day and a half, for 2 days.
Wow. So Baruch Hashem, you feel a little bit better.
Yasher Koach.
Thank you. You know there was a horrible terrorist attack.
You should wish Moti happy birthday. Today was Moti's birthday, by the way.
Yeah,
Moti, happy birthday. Moti, give us a bracha.
Today.
Moti, give us a bracha.
Made a mishabera for him.
It was Friday, my birthday.
Reb Zalman Deutsches Yusat was on Friday also. You test.
Hey, Yosy, go to sleep.
Okay, yeah. We'll be just fine. Was? In the Chorashul